And how can you help people if you think you're beyond people? How can I serve God's people if I think God's people are below me? I've got to make sure that I check myself. God, there's some stuff wrong with me. And I said it before, but I'll say it again. You know you. I know you know my issues. But what's yours? Like the commercial said, what's in your wallet? Because if we were to do a background check on everybody, would you be the first choice? Or should we find another? Moses has a persistence of resistance because I recognize, man, this is too much for me. Dealing with God's people, listen, it's one thing to mess your own life up. But when you're dealing with multitudes of people, I've got to say, God, you need to choose somebody else more qualified. Somebody asked the question, when did you stop getting nervous when you get up there to preach? I said, when you stop getting nervous, you need to hang up your license. Because when it is you stop getting nervous, it says, I'm comfortable in myself. Every time we serve, whether it's in the back or the front, I got to recognize, God, because you chose me for this, I got to give it everything I got. See, Moses' persistence of resistance, it wasn't because he was disobeying God, but he was just looking at his own self. And if there's anything we need to do, is stop pointing fingers at everybody else and talk about what everybody else ain't doing. Because every time you point fingers, recognize there's always three pointing right back at you. Moses is really persistent in his resistance because he says, God, I've got to stutter. I'm not the most eloquent in speech. People don't want to listen to people with a stutter. I can't talk right. I've never been one that people would listen to. I know you can't use me because this job requires some speaking. And here it is. The reason you know it's God is because God will call you to do something you never thought you could. See, when you know it's God, is when you heard it and you said, that's crazy. God gonna use somebody with a stutter to be a public speaker. Don't that sound crazy? God gonna use somebody, somebody that don't even have a house of their own to head the homeless ministry. How is it, God, you can use me to do something I've never done before? God said, the reason I can use you to do something you've never done before is because then you will have to depend on me. When it is we get to the place where we learn how to lean and to depend on God, you'll find all of us will be in a better place. But most of us are just like those NBA teams. We keep running into each other because we all trying to be the same person and do the same thing that God has not called us all to do. But here it is, when you recognize that in order to be an effective leader, it took some stuff. It took going through some things for me to get to where I am. That's why I don't question people when I know they've gone through hell and high water to get to where they are. And here it is, you got people that won't even pray over nothing, that want to tell you what you should be doing. Be careful, because after all that God has brought you through, God said, I'm using you for such a time as this to use what I've given you to bless everybody. Moses said, man, I'm telling you, they won't listen to you because I can't speak. God said, who is it that made people speak? Who is it that created the deaf and the dumb? Who is it that made the lame? Who is it that's able to open mouths even right now? Is it not I? God says, here it is. Even though you've been in church all your life, sometimes we still don't believe that God can do anything but fail. See, now I'm talking to folks, you might not be in leadership yet because you've been having resistance yourself. You've been saying, I ain't the right person. Let so-and-so do it. I'm not the right person. Let them keep on doing it. But watch this. Sooner or later, you can run from God, but you can't hide. And here it is more. If you have already been leading and been out of place, how about going back and saying, God, I recognize I've been a square trying to fit into a triangle. Maybe it's time that I address what I'm really supposed to be doing. So Moses recognizes I've got some things, some hang-ups that I can't quite get over. And so God becomes angry with Moses because it's like, Moses, I'm trying to use you, but you won't let me. Some of us, God is saying the same thing to you. I'm trying to use you, but you won't let me. You keep saying, I got it. Keep messing up. Y'all know how children do, don't you? When they're trying to fix everything, and the more they try, they mess it up even worse. And you keep saying, let me help you. And they say, I can fix it. I got it. And the more they got it, the worse it gets. And God is looking at us the same way. You keep saying you got it. But the more I look at you, you really ain't got it. And here it is. I'm going to use you, but you got to let it go. Here it is. I tell you what, since you won't listen to me, I got a plan B. So here it is. Moses now finds out, after his persistence of resistance, that there is an existence of assistance. Moses said, I can't do it myself. You need to find somebody else. So since you want me to find somebody else, don't you got a brother named Aaron? Here it is. A brother named Aaron. He's a Levite. And here it is. And he can speak well. As a matter of fact, not only can he speak well, but he'll be glad to see you. Watch what God does. God is still going to use you, but he's also going to remove every excuse you have. And for every shortcoming you have, God has somebody to fill in that blank. Now here it is. It is not until Moses assesses the problem that God can perform the solution. It's not until you admit you have a problem that real recovery can begin. So here it is. He says, I got Aaron coming to see you, and here it is. He's going to be glad to see you. A good leader is going to need people that can be strong where he is weak. Here's where we mess up, though. Most of the time, when we experience an error situation, most of the time, instead of trying to be strong where he is weak, we try to be strong where he is strong. Here it is. Moses' problem was not his leadership, but dealing with the membership. So Aaron's responsibility was to help Moses, not with the leadership, but with the membership. Because he could speak where Moses couldn't. Can I suggest to all of us is that God has placed you here not to be Moses, because he already got Moses. My role is to be Aaron, and that is where he's weak, we make him strong. See, isn't it good to know that God put the pieces in place? And everybody has such an intricate piece that if we all would just do what God called us to do, there would be no gaps. See, a lot of times we'll come to church and try to sit back in the cut like God don't see us. But the more you sit back in the cut and don't play your part, there's still a piece missing. Now what you have is 5 people trying to fill in all the gaps. So now they've used every finger, every toe, everything they have, trying to fill in blanks where you have left. Because you can't be Moses. And Lord, if you can just allow an Aaron to arise, here it is, that recognizes his strength. But here it is also glad to help the leader. Says Aaron is coming. He can speak well, and he's glad to see you. See, sometimes we'll become Aaron, but we'll also become an Achilles heel. Because now that you're helping the leader, now you feel as though the leader owes you his life. But God has placed you in a place and a time such as this to make sure that everything that is missing is filled in. And see, there's some people in the house, what you're saying is, well, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. But here it is, what is your strength? Because what you'll see is that there's something that you're strong in that's missing in action. Here it is. I really want to show you how this works. If all the pieces weren't in place every Sunday, not only would you be missing, but I would. If everybody didn't play their part, then we couldn't do what we do every week. And sometimes we take for granted how awesome our task is. If we don't put anything forth, if we don't use our strength to our greatest ability, what you'll find is that you begin to allow people around you to become affected by you. Have you ever found people that didn't feel like doing what they were called to do, and they start making the other people around them feel like they didn't want to do it either? You used to serve every week. Then you start missing a couple weeks. Then you start missing the meetings. Now we don't even see you anymore until Christmas. And what God is saying is, where is Aaron? We got Moses. But where is the person that can strengthen your weakness? I might not be able to sing like some people, but God has put people in place that can do it for me. Might not be able to play like everybody else, but God said, I put the people in place. Now, if they don't choose to take the task responsibly, then we're all going to miss the blessing. What happens when you have people that know they should be doing more, but sit and wait on somebody else to do it? Here it is. Aaron was a person who was glad to help. And that's what the Psalm says, doesn't it? It says you ought to serve the Lord with gladness, not with madness. How are you going to usher as if we made you stand on the door? How are you going to serve as if somebody's forcing you to do it? Here's a news flash. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And not only are you making you sick, but now you got the whole house sick. Because I choose not to do what God has called me to do. It says you got to know there is an existence of assistance. And it's easy to tell Moses he needs some assistance, but what about you? See, it's easy to say what one person needs assistance with as if you got all the answers yourself. But all of us need somebody. Everybody needs somebody, because everybody has some shortcomings. Everybody has some weaknesses. And it doesn't make you a bad person because you have weaknesses. It makes you a bad person if you act like you don't have weaknesses. See, so it says Aaron is coming. Aaron is coming. And here's what you're going to do. When Aaron comes, Aaron is going to be your mouth. so that what you say, Aaron says. What you speak, Aaron will speak for you. But Aaron, hear this, Aaron won't speak on his own accord. Aaron is going to speak on your behalf. See, the difference with some Aarons and the others is some Aarons want to make sure that they say what they want to say. And when God has called you to be the Aaron to Moses, you got to make sure that you and Moses are speaking the same language. Don't let me speak English and you speak in French. Because then there's going to be a communication gap. People are going to wonder, how is it, Moses, that Aaron is speaking for you, but y'all ain't on the same page? So as Aaron, it means I've got to do what Moses asks me to do. Nothing added, nothing taken away. Because I'm able to speak to the people where Moses is not. Isn't it good to know that when you know who you are and whose you are, when you know what I can do and what I can't do, you ought to have a person you can trust with the same heart as you. Shouldn't have to speak and wonder if it's going to be misinterpreted by the person speaking to the people. But it should be so that when I speak, we're all already on the same page. We already, if I say red light, you say green light. If I say come, you say go. So everything we say is in tune. But you can't get in tune if I don't know my role. It's important that we recognize how crucial we are to God's work. Every single one of you has a role to play. What is it that you're gifted in? What is it that you're good at? There was a situation just this week, and I told one of our members, see, this is what God is showing you, is there some things we've been locked into. This is my position. This is what I'm supposed to do. But what if God needs to use you in a new way? I know it's not prestigious like the one you get. But what if God wants to do something different in you? Have you ever thought about that? No, I've been sitting here for 30 years and I've been over this. Listen, what would happen if you just let go of it and say, God, have your way? If you need somebody to speak, I'll speak for you. If you need somebody to take the people where they need to be, I'll do that. But see, a lot of times we get so caught up with being seen that we don't recognize it's what we do behind the scenes that makes the biggest difference. It says, Moses, you're going to be to Aaron as I am to you. I'm going to tell you what to say. And then you're going to allow Aaron to say it for you. Isn't it good how that works? See, a lot of times what you don't recognize is when God speaks to Moses, Moses has to then do what God told him to do. Now, Aaron can't decide when Moses tells him what to say that ain't what's going to happen. Because Moses is to Aaron what God is to Moses. So therefore, we recognize my role is to stay in my space and not try to let everybody see my Facebook. If I recognize the role that I play is so vital, if I'm out of place, when it's time for them to hand it off, it's going to be somebody missing. How important would it be for the whole church to say, Pastor, this is what I can offer. I notice there's some things that have been missing, and I'm not going to talk about you not doing it. I'm going to do it myself. There's some gaps that need to be filled in, and I'm gifted in that area. What a wonderful world that would be, wouldn't it? When it is, we recognize how vital our role is. You recognize that helping Moses actually helps you. Somebody said the other day, it is when you help the man or woman of God that God blesses you. When you give the best of your service, when you do the best that you can do, God blesses you in the process. And here it is. So Moses now has gotten all these instructions from God that Aaron is coming. Help is on the way, and he's going to give you assistance. Where you're weak, he's going to be your strength. He's going to make sure he speaks for you. He said, but here it is. The last thing I want you to see, Moses, is I want you to have an instance of coexistence. He said, I want you to make sure that everything I've told you, whatever you do, don't lose who you are. Because, Moses, while Aaron is handling that, you never give up the leadership. You don't give up the leadership. He says, take the staff in your hand. I know you have Aaron helping you, but don't get it twisted. Aaron ain't the leader. So you take the staff in your hand and watch the miracles I do through you. God can do more when the leader has assistance than he can when the leader is trying to assist himself. Imagine with all the things God is doing now, what would happen if not just 5 of us did our part, but if all of us start doing our part? What would happen if we didn't wait on somebody to ask us? You know how we are. I would have helped, but ain't nobody asked me. I wanted to be part, but didn't nobody come to me. Watch this. What would happen if all of us recognize I'm not the leader, but I can assist the leader in any way I can? He says, Moses, though you delegate, you still have to make sure you hold the staff. See, that's tough because a lot of times people think that you're supposed to give the staff to them. But God says, you keep the staff because I'm going to perform the miracles through you. Aaron just frees you up to do what I told you to do. Here it is, church. Am I doing all that I'm supposed to be doing? Number one. Am I being an assistance to God's man? Number two. And is God pleased with what I'm doing? If I can't answer yes to any of those, we've got some work to do. If I can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm doing the best that I can do, I'm giving God my all. If one gives it 110 and 150 people give it 10%, it's still going to be a work in vain. I can preach, run down the aisles, cartwheel, all that, and lose my voice, and everybody leaves saying, oh, wow, we had a good time at church. But watch this. But what happens after that? I'm asking you, as the leader, for just a little more assistance. I know we're doing all right, but we could do a lot better. Shouldn't have to tell you slacking. You already know. Shouldn't have to come to you and have private meetings to discuss your lack of effort. You already know. Here it is. When you help, you're not helping me with my agenda, but you're helping to meet God's agenda. And only what we do for him is going to last. Years from now, when we tell these stories, you know how we tell stories every 20 years about how so-and-so was so vital to the church. We couldn't have made it without so-and-so. Those stories are good, but here it is. In the next 20 years, who are we going to talk about? I'm mighty afraid we're going to start running out of names. Oh, I hear you talk about them all the time. Who helped to get the church where they are.